Now, remember the summer of Eyjafjallajökull when the volcano in Iceland disrupted travel across Europe and beyond? Well, it seems we ain't seen nothing yet. A huge eruption of Iceland's Grímsvötn complex would represent a huge threat to Britain, according to the Cabinet Office's Civil Contingencies Secretariat. It ranks an event like the 1783 eruption of Laki as one of the three highest priority natural hazards that we currently face. Well, we've got an expert on hand to talk us through it, researcher in the School of Geosciences at Edinburgh University, Dr. John Stevenson. Hello.
Hello.
So just how bad could it get for us if Laki blows again?
So this Laki eruption was pretty nasty. There were about 8 months of eruption. This big fissure opened up in Iceland, about 27 kilometres long, spraying red hot lava out of there. And what was really serious about it was the lava was also really full of pretty nasty gases, so fluoride and chloride and particularly sulphur dioxide. And so in 1783 what happened was the sulphur dioxide came over to Europe, turned into a kind of sulphuric acid haze, and this fog then was over Central Europe or Northwest Europe for most of the summer then. And that is the same kind of, the sulphuric acid is the same as in acid rain, so that was raining out and it was scorching the crops and damaging them, and then also it was hurting people. It was irritating their eyes and their lungs, and it goes in this report, they go into the fact that analysis of graveyard records showed that perhaps 20,000 extra people died that summer as an account of this gas.
Yeah, so what would that mean for Western Europe now?
So this is what the report that's come out just now is about. The researchers at the British Geological Survey and at Leeds University and Iceland and elsewhere have tried to work out what would happen if this happens again. So they've worked out how much gas was produced in the Laki eruption, and they put that into atmospheric models to see how it would come over. And then they've taken equations that look at things like how air pollution affects people dying of heart attacks and things like that. And when they factors all of those things in, they reckon that a repeat of this eruption could kill an extra 140,000 people.
Yeah, and what about the other disruption that would be caused to agriculture? And what about things like transport? Because we saw what happened with the dust affected air travel from that Eyjafjallajökull.
Yes, so, well, the agriculture, as I said before, it's like this acid rain. So back before we sorted out pollution from factories, there were lots of images of forests in Scandinavia with all the leaves off the trees because of the sulphuric acid. So potentially you could be seeing those kind of effects across Europe. In terms of transport, it's a slightly different scenario from Eyjafjallajökull because this eruption, or the Laki eruption, was mainly basalt, which tends not to produce as much ash. However, it did produce some ash, and as the fissure opens up, if the fissure happened to go into a lake or go under a glacier, then the interaction of the magma, which is at 1,000 degrees, and the meltwater can suddenly cause steam explosions, and that can make more ash. So you might find that every time a new bit of fissure opens up, you get a puff of ash coming out, and it could be as much as Eyjafjallajökull at its peak, but then it would only last for a couple of days. The real issue with this, though, is that because the eruption is going on for months, even if you did just get a little bit of ash, maybe just affecting Scotland, maybe just Norway or Sweden, you would get it repeatedly, and it would be very hard to predict when it was going to happen. So it would be very hard to plan. So the disruption would be different. You wouldn't stop all of Europe anymore, but potentially you would have difficult to predict, difficult to plan, short stoppages across the northwest of Europe.
And I suppose the key question in all of this, because scientists can come up with terrible predictions of what would happen if. But the key question, I suppose, is how likely is this to happen, say, within the next 10 years or within our lifetimes?
Yeah, so within the next 10 years, not so likely. It's kind of, when you're thinking about these disasters, people think about like a 10-year storm or a 100-year storm or something like this. So a large magnitude fissure eruption like this would be a 250-year event. So we had the Laki eruption in 1783. We had another really big one back in about 930 AD, which was similar in size. And those are only two of the last 1,000 years. But then we've had a series of smaller ones. And this report on average says you would expect something like this every 250 odd years. So it's the kind of thing that's, it's not beyond the possibility is not something that's so unlikely that you don't need to plan for it. And that's why the government have pushed for this report, so that they can start to think about it and at least have an idea of what to do if it happens.
OK, well, thanks very much for joining us with that analysis. Dr. John Stevenson from Edinburgh University.